Hi everyone. You should be seeing this on Saturday, September the 19th, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, Saturday, September the 19th. Um, this is part 4 in the Oilers series, where I go and break down everything I think they should do this offseason. If you have not seen the other parts, let me just give you a quick recap on what they were. Part 1 of this series was me breaking down what the Oilers should do with their draft pick this year, the number 14th overall pick. I'm not in depth enough to go through the rest of their picks, so I just went over pick 14, and I said, hey, they should probably pick a winger. Preferably, in my mind, I would love to see Seth Jarvis or Dawson Mercer on this team because they bring that offensive touch. In the second video, we talked about the goaltending. I addressed how I don't think that they should be going for a starter, trying to pay somebody a lot of money. I think they should go for a solid 1B or very good backup goalie that can play behind or in a tandem with Koskinen and go from there. Pretty much a better Mike Smith. In the third video, we talked about the defense. I talked about how if they could move out the Russell contract, go ahead and do it. Don't make any big moves. Re-sign Ethan Bear for sure. Rely on the youth developing a little bit and hopping up into the lineup, filling the spots. Now we're talking about the part. This right here. This part of the team is the part I think that they need to address the most because the draft pick. It's the draft pick. You go up on stage, or you go via telecom and you say, with this pick we select this player. With the goaltending very minimal, you just have to make a signing defensively. Really, you don't even maybe you pick up a 7th defenseman, but you don't even need to make a major signing. The forward core is where the most is going on and where the most is going to have to be seeped through. The most conclusions have to be came to. So let's just start from the top here. We all know there's 3 forwards pretty much guaranteed a spot. It's McDavid, Draisaitl, and Hopkins. So with these 3, obviously we know what we're getting in McDavid and Draisaitl. They are not going anywhere, by the way, yet. Anyways, in which, if there's a failure this year to surround them with more depth and actual effective players, then yeah, maybe we do see a trade at some point, unfortunately. But I think the main one to talk about here is Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and it's kind of a really, really underlying, almost, I feel like it's almost an underrated story because people have said it, but I haven't talked more about it. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, he is on the last year of his deal. He is making $6 million per year, which, in my opinion, it's a really good contract, but the issue is, after this year, it's up. And because of that, he is going to want a raise. Now, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is relegated to either first-line left winger, second-line left winger, or third-line center on this team. But on most teams, arguable top 6 player. Some teams he would make the top line. He would be top line in Ottawa. He'd probably be second line in Detroit because they got Dylan Larkin. But think about a team that needs a number 1 center. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins could probably qualify to be that because he has shown spurts of potential in the past. He's been a very solid player, and he was given $6 million, if I'm not mistaken, back in 2014 or maybe 2016, somewhere around then, when making he was given it back in 2014, and that's back when $6 million was like, a good portion of the cap, instead of just, oh, that's your 5th or 6th best player that you have contracted. So Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is going to be an interesting story to see develop, and I also think it's a bit of an underlying, hey, maybe watch out. I would not like to see Nuge get traded. That being said, he is a player who is going to want more money on a team that's going to be cash-strapped in the middle of a pandemic, and he's on an expiring contract, and he's also an elite player that you can get a good return for. There's incentive there to maybe make a move. Ken Holland, he doesn't always like to move the members of the core. Do we see him move here? Do we see him be a little bit relentless? if the contract negotiation's too high. Because honestly, you look at what Nuge could fetch you. I bet you he could fetch you because he's a center, a first-round pick, a solid roster player, and a good prospect. I mean, honestly, I want to compare it in a way to the Pacioretty deal and think, okay, Pacioretty, in exchange for him, they got back a roster player, a left winger, so a roster player who ended up being a middle six option at the time, top six option now. They got back a fairly good prospect and a second round pick. I wonder what you could get back for Nuge, and I feel like that might be a market to test. James Neal and Zach Kassian, I'm going to lump them together here because they are, in a way, kind of similar. They're guys that arguably shouldn't be where they are, but due to the McDavid effect, they are here. James Neal obviously signed this contract back in Calgary. We traded Lucic to Calgary, which, by the way, I don't want to say that trade backfired, but if think about it this way, right? Milan Lucic just helped the Calgary Flames make the first round, something that the Oilers were unable to do. He took key draws for them. He played with Dylan Dubé, and that was one of their better lines. And we retained salary on that and gave up a third. I'm not saying it was a bad trade, because Milan Lucic is not the best player in the world, of course. But it's interesting to see how Milan Lucic, even if he was a small part, helped the team be more successful in Calgary than he was helping in Edmonton. You have to think at that point, maybe it's something more. But now we're stuck with James Neal. Now, James Neal did put up very good numbers, but some key notes to point out here. A, most of his goals came before New Year's. B, because of the whole COVID thing, they went by goals on pace for, so we ended up having to give up that third round pick. And the final note here is that for the next 3 years, he's going to be paid $5.75 million, which is not going to be a nice contract to have to pay out. Zach Kassian, a lot of people give Ken Holland credit. I was always scared with him coming in and being the general manager. This right here, the Zach Kassian deal, is the first deal where I'm like, ooh boy. Because yes, Zach Kassian had a good year, had a solid year. But it's one season, man. I don't know if this is the best contract in the world. And the reason I'm really scared is because you know what Ken Holland liked to do in Detroit. He loved handing out contracts to people that were on the team because he's loyal to the team completely. That's why I'm worried about this. I'm really worried about a Nuge deal, possibly. I'm somewhat worried about an Ethan Bear deal. Dear Lord, I hope I don't have to worry about a Chris Russell extension on the defensive end. But, yeah, like, those are their top 5 paid forwards. 2 of them rightfully deserve it. One of them is on one of the better contracts in the league because of when you compare it to the production. They have a guy expiring. They have a guy who's dwindling, and a guy who just got paid $3 million after 1 year of middle six production, if I'm not mistaken. Alex Chiasson isn't a horrible deal. He's making $2.15. Nice power forward. Bottom 6. You can deal with that for 1 more year. I don't think there's a lot of problem there. My mouse just won't go over. Josh Archibald. Happy that they did extend him. I know that they extended him a long time ago. I just forgot. Kariya Yamamoto is on a nice little contract. He's still on his ELC, which, by the way, he expires next year. So you're going to have to deal with him and Nuge and Chiasson and Kariya and Russell, who is signed on for $700K for 1 more year. And then this year, as RFA, you've got to have Athanasiou, and then as a UFA, Sheahan and Ennis. Now, here's the deal. I've been vocal about this Oilers forward core and how I don't like it. And even though on paper it looks better than it is, that forward core is not good. Besides McDavid, Draisaitl, and Nuge, who are all centermen. Other than that, as of right now, there's not really any other pieces. I think Andreas Athanasiou, if used properly, this is the big word here, if used properly, Andreas Athanasiou could be incredible next to Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl. Kale Yamamoto is going to be a stud. Package that with the other three guys that they have, that's the beginnings of a possible top six. And yes, I'm saying Andreas Johnsson to be in the top six. You picked him up. This was your big deadline acquisition. He is a former 30-goal scorer, and your solution, your idea was to put him into the bottom six. No, unacceptable. This man should be top line with Connor McDavid, playing with him, giving McDavid somebody who is fast like him. That's why we brought him in. He's a speedy winger, somebody who can maybe not keep up with McDavid, but somebody who's not going to be all the way back here, or back here when McDavid is here, or whatever it is. He's not going to be so far behind on the ice. We're going to have a more proficient scoring winger. He should be on the first line. But other than those five and bottom six players, who else is here? Like, James Neal, I'm sorry, I know he had a good year, but after New Year's, you can argue he's washed. Kassian was not good enough in the playoffs. He really wasn't. If he had showed up, that's at least a few more goals. Maybe that's a win in game one with those few more goals he gets, or a few more points he puts up, and maybe we're talking about a completely different scenario here. You know? But Kassian at 3.2 is a scary idea for me. Like, Chiasson I can handle. I do like the bottom six that's being built up here. It looks like next year we're going to have the bottom six looking something like Russell, there's Chiasson and Archibald. Now, that's interesting because all three of them are right wingers. So, is Chiasson gone, maybe? Do you deal Chiasson? I don't think that would be a horrible idea. Jujhar Kariya's on the left wing but can also play center. Sheahan's a UFA, and personally, I know that, you know, people are like, oh, we can dump Sheahan off. If he's willing to go for a Josh Archibald-esque contract, or maybe a little higher because he's a center, I wouldn't be upset if he came back. I genuinely wouldn't. I would actually like to see Riley Sheahan come back because... And I think the main reason is because you have to think about the special teams, right? Something went well for the Oilers this year, and it was that penalty kill during the regular season. That's one of the things that went well. The power play went well along with it. But another thing that went well was the penalty kill. And Riley Sheahan was a bit of a crucial part of that penalty kill. I don't know what unit he was on, but he was on a unit with Archibald, and I'm fairly certain that was the top penalty killing unit. That should be noted, right? So I would love to see Riley Sheahan come back. When I'm thinking about the lines combinations, I mean, we kind of have to accept the fact that, yes, we have to deal with the Zach Kassian Albatross. Yes, we have to deal with the James Neal Albatross. But we gotta try and make the best of it. So next year, if you're asking me what lines I would roll out, not lying here, I know it's gonna sound similar in ways, but they are different lines that I think work better. I think you run out a top line of Athanasiou with McDavid and Kassian. Two speedy scorers and a guy that will knock your lights out. Just a bit of a tougher guy, right? Second line, Nugent Hopkins on the left wing. I do not believe this team can run Nuge as a third-line center and be successful. I don't think that it's going to be possible. Unless you maybe put James Neal there, which could be a possibility. Maybe that's what you do. Maybe you run with James Neal, second-line left winger, with the two line mates that were going to be there anyways, Draisaitl and Yamamoto, and then run Nuge at the third center. I'm going to just say that could work, but I'm going to really just say that I think Nuge should be the second-line left winger alongside Draisaitl, Yamamoto. And then from there, I think Gordon Haas is still on contract, which, if so, that's good. He is still on contract. He's just on loan. So Gordon Haas, I think that could be a very good fourth-line center. So if it's me, the top six is set up. The third line, it has a blank on it. I'd put James Neal there because he was playing left wing anyways on the fourth line. Let's put him on the third line maybe with Sheahan and Archibald, and then maybe run your fourth line as Jujar Kariya with Gott and Haas, and then Alex Chiasson, and then maybe have your 13th forward be Patrick Russell in the case of injury, and then maybe go and pick up a depth center or two because the Granlund experiment, it didn't exactly work out this year. Marcus Granlund obviously signed. It didn't fully work out, so maybe we try with a different guy. There's a lot of different options out there, but again, I feel like this offseason, because of the contracts they're in, is going to be conservative. I wish it wasn't, though. See, this right here, those lines I just gave you, that is the... I'm pretty sure they're going to have to roll with that, because what else can they do? Like, what type of money are they going to have? They might have a few $1 million when you look over. When I look here and I see projected cap space, it says they're going to have $10 million. So they could go out there and make a move. As of right now, that's what I have it as. But honestly, I'm not going to be surprised if this team goes out there and makes a move. You know? The question's going to be, alright, you go make that move. You've got to get rid of somebody or else you're going to clog the system up way too much. Honestly, I think the target for this team, and we've talked about what I think they should do with free agency. I think they should add depth on the blue line. I think that they should add, and I think they should add depth on the blue line because that's what the winning teams have, depth on the blue line. I think they should add a solid 1B goalie, and I think that they should try and go out there and add a top 6 right winger. I don't know if you can move the James Neal contract. I don't know. But I think you need to go out there and try and acquire somebody for that top 6. And also, I know that, oh man, they should use up all the cap space. They've got a lot of contracts coming up over the next couple of years. Nuge, Yamamoto, like over the next 2 years, who else is coming off the books? I mean, Adam Larson's not as big of a one, but he's still one of your better defenders. Adam Larson's coming off the books. Like, there are guys coming off the books. So, pretty much, TLDR of the forward core, what I think that they should do when it comes to the forwards. I've been going for 17 minutes, man. Time just flies by when you're having fun, I guess. But, TLDR, Athanasiou should be in the top 6. Kassian and Neal need to show why they're being paid this much money in some way, shape, or form, even if it's not by point production. This team needs to go get a top 6 winger, and it just needs to keep building up a very strong bottom 6. As an Oilers fan going into this offseason, I do feel optimistic about what my team could do. I do feel optimistic because we're going to have cap space. You can argue how much is going to be eaten up. But, if you don't eat up everything about it... By the way, one thing I didn't mention here. Tyler Ennis, I wouldn't pay him any more than $1 million to come back. Or maybe $2 million. I know he's hometown kid. But are we going to pay a guy off of, a solid season of production in Ottawa? Tell me to my face you will pay a guy off of having a solid season in Ottawa. Can't do it, right? Okay, perfect. We're on the same footing. But I think that the Oilers could do something. I think that there's trades that can be made. Really, when I'm looking at guys who could be traded, if I were to give you a top 5 candidates for trades this year, top 6 I'm going to give you. I think the two that you could... I think the name you're going to hear the most out there, weirdly enough, is going to be Matt Benning. I think he's the guy that's going to have the rumors about him the most. I think personal wants for the Oilers to move, and maybe one or two of them could be a realistic situation, would be Koskinen, Russell, Neal, Kassian. And I think the underrated dark horse that you're going to hear trade rumors about is Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. But yeah, so that has been the off-season rambling series. And this is going to be the final video in the Oilers 1920 playlist, I guess. And because next time I talk about the Oilers, Lord willing, It will be it'll be the 2021. I'm gonna start that up because the first trade that happens, really, or the next big move that happens for the Oilers, that's where we're gonna cover it. Um, if it's not until the draft, it's not until the draft. If it's before then, it's before then. But that's how the playlist is gonna work, because I've set up playlists for like Oilers this year and the Oilers game review. Oilers game review is just gonna be all of them in chronological order. But the yearly Oilers playlist is going to go from the draft through free agency, through the summer, through the season, through the playoffs, and it will end with a 4-part off-season series where we talk about the draft and then the 3 different positions, and then that's the end of that. I know I wasn't here for the whole ride, but to those who were here and did watch, as I ranted and raved and cried almost about my team, and also talked about some of the bright spots and all the different things, I thank you so much for watching through. You know, I feel good to know that people out there, actually care about what I have to say. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and there's more content on the way. There's a lot of content coming with the playoffs wrapping up soon, with us about to have a final, with some of the other videos I have planned, talking about some teams, talking about some wonderful general managing ideas and team construction ideas. Those are some of the things I want to talk about. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all on the next one. Bye for now.